It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q. Grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Hey, everybody. I think I need to fix the intro because the whole I got to figure that out because the music ends, it fades out, and then boom, I'm just here. And it's like, I don't know. I probably overthink everything way too much. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. I'm Chris. I'm your host. I'm the guy behind the channel for the new people that are just tuning in. I just make these videos, just show myself working. They're really meant for my own technicians, but obviously share them with the public too. And then we do these live streams Monday evenings, work permitting, to try to consolidate some of the questions and answer them. And then obviously there's a great community in here too. Lots of great people, good friends in here. Common commenters. I don't know how you say that, but there's a lot of great people. And, that's the whole cool thing about this community that we have of HVAC people, whether you're an actual content creator or you're just a viewer and a normal commenter. It's really cool because, everybody's helping each other out. If you guys are watching this on Facebook, on LinkedIn, great. That's awesome. It doesn't benefit me either way where you watch this, but I will say there's a YouTube community in here. Currently, right now, there's like 60 people, and they're all having a conversation. Some of them are talking, some of them are just watching. So if you want to be part of the big conversation, you definitely want to come over to YouTube. But again, it doesn't benefit me either way. It's all the same, anywhere you want to be at. So hello to everybody. If you guys do have questions or things that you want me to cover, feel free to put them in the chat, but put them all in capital letters. It definitely helps me to see them because a lot of times there's a lot of stuff going on. And then there's normal conversations just going on between viewers. And that's perfectly fine in the chat. Like 100% my chat. That's why we do questions and comments for me in capital letters. That way, people can have normal conversations in there too. So Let's see. Jordan Henshaw says, I am a professional commenter. So welcome to the stream. Lots of great people. You know, it is really awesome. Yeah, Jason Johnson said that he was dreaming of a carne asada burrito because Jason used to live in Southern California, but he moved far away to the land of freedom and independence, the country of Texas. And he just still misses a few things from California, and just California style carne asada burritos or something that he said he missed. And yeah, I actually had those for dinner last night. Just went to the meat market, got a bunch of carne asada, got some marinated chicken, and that was dinner. So we're going to be eating that for the next 2 nights or so. So yeah, but as usual, I got a couple things I want to cover, and then I want to get to questions, comments, and all that good stuff too. So this last weekend was just doing stuff around the house. If you guys don't already know, I do a show with my friends on Friday evenings called the HVAC Overtime Show. So I kind of discussed it, and that's on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel. Very uncensored show. So if you get your feelings hurt by bad words, you definitely don't want to watch that show. Yeah, I was busy over the weekend because we had a water leak at my house, and I had to fix that. We still got to do some drywall work. I still got to repair my flooring in my house because water got underneath the flooring and all that good stuff. But I got the leaks fixed and got the, shower valves and all that stuff replaced. It was kind of nice since it leaked. I pulled the drywall off the other side of the wall, so I was able to change the shower valve from both sides. So that made it really nice and actually support it properly, because before I moved in here, they had the bathroom remodeled some point, I don't know. And they never supported the shower valve. So over time, the silicone came loose. And when people were moving the handles and stuff, the whole shower valve would pull out of the wall. And I didn't know that. And it turned into a leak. And yeah, long story short, I was busy this weekend, but it was a good weekend, productive, got a few things done. So yeah, let's see what the chat has going on right now. Hello to everybody in here. Yeah, lots of great people. Neil C. Vid says, wait, I can get paid for commenting? I don't know. I'm sure someone will pay people to comment on their stuff. I'm sure. I'm sure they will. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Oh, that's really cool, Long Trout. I try, so that's cool. All right. So starting in the soft right away. Oh, okay. So let's answer a few of these questions. Ike, hey, what's up, bud? How you doing, man? Thanks so much for being a channel member for so long. That is really awesome. And it says that he gifted 5 videos membership. So I don't know how that works, but thanks for doing that, Ike. That's really awesome. Let's see. Am I still planning on doing the fresh air intake for my house? Simon Harvey. Yeah, that just kind of is on the back burner right now because just busy with life and stuff, but I'll get to that eventually. Let's see. What do I recommend, a van or a truck? That's a great question, and it really depends on the kind of stuff that you're working on and the environment you're working in. I've had both. I've had utility body pickup trucks, and I've had service vans. Service vans, usually what I have, but in the past, I had a utility body pickup truck. Super awesome, super quiet. I had an extended cab truck. It was really nice. I liked how quiet it was, but when you have a van, it's really nice when it rains and, you get inclement weather because you don't got to get all your tools and stuff wet to get something out of the back of your truck. So, to each their own, but for service, doing restaurant stuff, vans are really easy and really quick, rather easy to park for the most part and stuff. So I prefer a van lately, but it is what it is, right? Let's see what else we got going on in here. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Kenneth wanted to know if I knew of a building science school program. Okay. So building science is nothing new. Building science, as far as the residential side, there's commercial building science too, but in general, it's nothing new. But it's hyper focusing on the things that make the envelope, you know, absorb or reject heat energy from inside or outside. And it's what makes the envelope efficient. Okay. Building science is attacking the envelope rather than just looking at the box that's cooling it, right? The air conditioning unit or whatever, it's looking at everything. So Kenneth is asking if I know of a school that will do a degree in building science. And while I do not know of a school off the top of my head, I do know that there is several like organizations that have building science training, and there's like industry events, building science summer camp, things like that, where like-minded people get together. But yeah, I do not know of a formal program that offers a degree in building science. I think it's going to be more of a certificate style thing. You're probably going to have to focus on, you know, some basic fundamentals in school and then add extra certifications or training classes to your experience essentially after the fact. Definitely reach out to a lot of the um, tool manufacturers, you know, the building science tool manufacturers, the Energy Conservatory, Retrotech, you know, those big players. Talk to them. They would be able to guide you. Just reach out to them on social media. They'll guide you. If you join the HVAC Grapevine, that's a great group that talks a lot about building science. You know, they'll basically help to guide you on where training programs might be in your area. But I certainly don't know of any in my area that are specific in building science. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Let's see. Nasty HVACR says he's putting in a 2 million BTU direct fired makeup air unit in his house. Okay. Yeah. You really need some fresh air in that house, apparently. So there you go. Let's see what else. Watching from Australia. Right on, Mitchell. That's really awesome. Doing a leak search on a VRV system. Right on, man. Well, thank you very much for watching. Thanks so much for the nice words. So let's see what we got going on inside here. Chat GPT says there are a lot of building science degrees out there. Great. Maybe there, you know, I've never heard of a building science degree, but I'm completely ignorant in that fact. So I don't know. All right. Anonymous. Oh, so so if you guys shoot me emails or comments or anything and you want me to address things, just let me know ahead of time if you want to remain anonymous, okay? Because I put right here, anonymous wants to know. So this was an anonymous person. They just didn't want their name mentioned for whatever reason, and it's all good. But they wanted to know about mistakes, and he wanted to know my experience in mistakes because he finds, and I'm paraphrasing his email, but this gentleman finds that, you know, he makes mistakes, you know, a couple times, maybe once a month or something like that. And he wants to know if that's normal. Okay. Mistakes are part of our growth. And, you know, hopefully we learn from our mistakes. Hopefully we learn from other people's mistakes. That's why I certainly share a lot of my mistakes out here. So that way, maybe you guys don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. If I share my experience and the steps that I went through, I'm hoping that maybe you guys don't make the same ones. Right. But yeah, mistakes are part of the growing process. And anybody out there that says they never make mistakes is lying to you because we are human, we are flawed, and we make mistakes. The best we can do is try to learn from them. Even I make mistakes. Okay. You know, I'm not some perfect, you know, person. You know, I'm just a normal guy, but mistakes are part of our growth. Okay. But it's all about how you overcome them and how you plan for them. The way that I can explain it is, you know, when I think of a job where I made a big mistake, you know, that sits in my brain and it helps me as I move on to the next job, I think. Or when I start to do something similar, I remember, okay, remember last time you cut a corner, you were rushing too fast and you skipped this step and this happened, right? So you try to remember that the next time you're doing something and try to grow from it. I think it's really important as technicians that we are honest about our mistakes. Of course, before you start talking to customers and stuff, you want to talk to your management, your hierarchy at your company, let them know, be upfront with them saying, hey, I made this mistake. You know, I want to talk to the customer about it and, you know, address the issues so that way we can make it right. Just make sure that your management knows before you start addressing things with customers. But, you know, honesty is the best thing, right? With your company, with your customer, you know, own up to your mistakes and, you know, just try to grow from them. Let's see what's going on here. It's pretty humbling when you have to explain a mistake to your boss. Yeah, definitely. I could only imagine. You want to know the crappy thing, though, is when you don't have a boss and then you make mistakes and you're the person that has to sit on them and they just sit in your chest and knot up and twist up and then just feel like your chest is just getting tight all the time because you're thinking of the stuff that's going on. That's, you know, what I have to deal with on daily. So it's not any easier for someone that's running the show versus someone that is making the mistakes too. You know, if you're anything like me, we all feel the same way. We all hate, you know, having to say that we're wrong. I genuinely hate having to say that I made a mistake. But on the flip side, when I do make a mistake, or if I find out that I didn't know something, you know, the correct operation or something, it's also an opportunity to learn and to grow from it. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. Let's see. Ike says he's actually planning on becoming an instructor at a college. Hopefully it pans out. That's really cool, Ike. Really cool, man. That's neat. I'm glad that you're enjoying what you're doing, and I'm glad that you have some goals. So that's really important. Let's see. Honesty. The best thing about honest thoughts make men. Right on. All right. So something that I wanted to cover, you know, I have been pretty vocal about the A2L refrigerants, and I've been pretty vocal about, you know, how I don't think they're that big of a deal. But I do have to remember that, you know, some people don't work with, you know, A3 refrigerants on a regular basis, hydrocarbon refrigerants like myself or my technicians, my company, or most restaurant refrigeration guys. You know, we've been dealing with R290 or isobutane, R600, flammable refrigerants, highly volatile, highly flammable refrigerants for a very long time, couple years now. And the A2Ls are mildly flammable refrigerants. In my opinion, I still think that they're a little bit overhyped about all the drama that everybody's creating behind the A2Ls. But on the flip side, you know, for people that have never worked with flammable refrigerants, I guess a mildly flammable refrigerant is a bit scary. There's a lot of misinformation out there about A2Ls, and I'm not going to go into all that because there's a million different. Just go on YouTube and look up A2L. Don Gillis, Jason Objute, both of them have amazing content with A2L refrigerants. Ty Branneman's got some stuff out there too. They all have great information, so they'd be the people to go to find out the standards and everything. But I do want to preach a few things. First and foremost, basic refrigeration, you know, safety practices apply to the A2L refrigerants. You know, best practices that we've had, you know, since the beginning of refrigeration and air conditioning: clean, tight, dry, evacuated systems before we add refrigerant, no mixing of refrigerants, sweeping system with nitrogen. When possible, cutting components out is a good thing, but you know, I'll be honest and the first person to say I rarely ever cut components out. I'm usually unsweating them because of space limitations and stuff. So if you do have to unsweat components, make sure you've done a nitrogen sweep and make sure you're potentially prepared for flame outs. Okay. Dealing with refrigeration, we have to deal with flame outs quite a bit because oil gets trapped in the coils. When you're trying to unsweat things, you get it hot enough that the oil will combust, and then you'll get like a flame coming out and that's with non-A2L refrigerants, right? So it's something that I'm already prepared for, and I'm always ready for a flame out. But, you know, those are things that everybody needs to consider. Another thing to understand about A2L refrigerants is that at this point in time, you are not converting any existing systems. You're not doing a changeover to an A2L refrigerant and not changing components, okay? You're only going to be using A2L refrigerants in systems that were designed for them. So you're not going to go put an A2L in your mom's air conditioner that's been in her house for 20 years. The system that would use an A2L refrigerant would be a brand new system that was designed for it. There's safety devices in them, leak detectors, and different things like that. There's different leak strategies. If the system senses a leak with the leak detector, it's going to turn on the indoor blower motor. It's going to isolate the evaporator and the condenser. You know, different systems have different setups. But one thing I want to say is there's also people out there that are trying to profit on the A2L changeovers, okay? And that being tool manufacturers. So keep in mind and use common sense, okay? I'm starting to notice a trend with a lot of tool manufacturers. They're going to release new tools, right? That are simply just the same tools that they had before, but there's like a slight tweak to it, and it's labeled A2L certified or A2L compliant when nothing changed about the tool. Okay. So keep that in mind, and don't, you know, do your research and don't just go buy all new tools because the tool manufacturer said that you need to. Do your research, read into what actually changed, ask some questions. Don't just buy a tool because you see some dude on. I mean, you guys probably all get the same feed as I do, right? When I open up my social media, I got home today and I was scrolling through social media, just bored for a minute. And it's like, gosh, man, everything is a product push. And don't get me wrong, I advertise people's products on my channel. So I'm not going to say that I'm like better than anybody. I try to only use products in like a work setting, and I try not to do just like product videos, you know, for the most part. I'm talking about a different thing. I'm training, I'm educating, but still, you know, all I see is everybody just advertising this new tool because it's A2L certified, or, you know, trying to sell something because it's A2L certified. I mean, what changed? What changed about the system? Like, what changed about the tool? Now, I understand there's some things that need to change, but for the most part, there's not much in the tools that we're using, you know? So just be cautious and be leery of having to buy all new tools just because they say A2L certified. Okay. Do your research. Is your torch going to be A2L compliant? Exactly. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Like, wait until one of these torch manufacturers comes out with an A2L compliant oxyacetylene brazing rig. Like, get out of here, you know? Um, let's see. Arika Anderson says, I'm going to get new probes. That's great. Probes are a great tool, right? Let's see. Andrew Vera says, an unsweated oil log coil and it burnt me. Oh, that's a bummer, man. Yeah, you got to be ready for that kind of stuff. So, well, guys, okay, right on. It was good seeing you, Will. Hope to see you soon. Miguel Martinez, how you doing, my friend? I'm doing good. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Reading through the chat, seeing what I'm missing. Yep. All right, cool. Going through here. They do push press tools. And, you know, I use a press tool every once in a while, but I'm not using it on every job. You know, press is good in certain situations. I'm not going to commit to using press tools for the rest of my career. I'm not going to commit to only brazing for the rest of my career. I have both. And in certain situations, I might use one or the other. And every situation is going to be different. I just evaluate it ahead of time and find out, is this press tool going to help to save me time on this job? Or is, you know, brazing going to be better in the long run? Every job's different. So let's see what else we got going on in here. So yeah, Keith Peterson, just like the 410A switch back in the day. Yeah. So for those that don't remember this, for the new people that are in here, you know, that didn't witness the changeover in the mid to late 90s to the early 2000s to 410A, there was a lot of hype and a lot of fear mongering about 410A. Everybody thought that the system was just going to explode because of the pressure difference between R22 and 410, because you had a high side pressure potential of 600 plus psi with 410A versus 400 plus with R22, 300 plus, right? People were panicking, thinking, oh my gosh. And then there was, with the 410A changeover, what else? Like, let's ask the chat right now, the people that are in the chat, what are some of the silly things, the silly wives' tales or whatever that you heard about 410A? What do you guys remember? I want to see what the chat has to say. Some of the silly things that people said was going to happen with 410A versus R22. So I'm going to look through the chat right now and see what you guys have to say. What are some of the things that you guys saw? Clayton Haddix, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I woke up today, so I guess I'm thankful for that. I still haven't figured out if I'm thankful or not, but I think I should be thankful for waking up. So, you know, there's that. Do I have an analog manifold in my truck? I still have analog or compound gauges, like stubbies. So I have a high side and a low side with little fittings on them, but I don't have an actual manifold in my truck anymore. So let me see. What head pressure was going to cause coil to split, says Brian Sanders. Yeah, that was something that people thought for sure. The safety protocol when it first released. Yep. They said it was going to be flammable, right? Because guess what? 410A, do you know what 50% of the refrigerant is? There's two gases in 410A. One of them, R32. Oh my gosh. Did you know that you've been working with R32 for the last 10 years? Because you have, if you ever touched a system with 410A. But they added another refrigerant because R32 was mildly flammable. Okay. So they added, I think it's R125. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the other compound. So I think it's R32 and R125. And the R125 was the thing that calmed down the mildly flammable part. So yeah, you have been working with R32 for 10 plus years if you've ever touched a system with 410A, because that's half of 410A. How long do I think it should take you to be able to do service calls solo? Currently, only been in refrigeration for 6 months and still have a lot to learn. Hudson, don't focus on trying to beat a time or anything like that. Right now, being in the trade, a new person getting into refrigeration, focus on doing the job right. Okay. Obviously, communicate with your management, your service manager. I hope that your service manager is closely shadowing you, if not working with you, because 6 months in, you have a lot to learn for sure. But don't try to look at a time point right now. Just try to get the job done right. You start focusing on the fundamentals, you learn how to do the job, you learn how to do it properly, the way that I approach things. And then as the person finally learns all the steps that are needed, then you start working on being more efficient and getting it done faster. But first and foremost, you need to focus on doing it right. So don't worry about a time. Arika says that they said it was going to be flammable. Yep. I already addressed that one. Separate gauges. That was the other one too. Keith Peterson and Dave Johnson both said that you were going to need separate gauges for 410A. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Reading through here, fear mongering about getting 2 different types of refrigerants in your gauges. That was 100% one of the things for sure. Arika Anderson, you're a kid. Oh, okay. Right on. Let's see what else. Yep, there we go. R32 is 125 and 32. That's right. Okay, so I knew that. So, one of the things about 410A when it first came out was that the refrigerant oil that was used with 410A was this. It wasn't new, but it was new to the HVAC, normal air conditioning side of things, and it was polyester oil. Oh my gosh. And polyester oil is hydroscopic, meaning it absorbs water very easily, to the point that if you go and buy a gallon jug of mineral oil, it's in a plastic container. But if you go buy a gallon jug of polyester oil, it's in a metal container because it's so hydroscopic that they say it's going to absorb moisture through the plastic. So because polyester oil is hydroscopic, everybody started coming out with these things saying that you can't be mixing the oils because, oh my gosh, some of the fear mongering that happened with 410A was that, well, if you mix the mineral oil and the polyester oil, it's, the whole system's just going to be trash and it's going to have to get thrown away and you're going to ruin everything. Like that was some of the fear mongering that happened with 410A. And we've since learned that that was a lot of overhype and unnecessary madness. You do not need to carry separate gauges in your van and all that stuff for, 410 and R22. Just clean out your gauges. Just clean them out. Don't leave refrigerant. You should never be leaving refrigerant in any of your manifolds anyways, because it puts unneeded pressure on the pressure transducers and or the compound gauge mechanism. What's the name of the thing inside a compound gauge? I'll think of it in a minute. I can't think of the funky name for it. There's a weird name for the pressure thing inside a compound gauge. I can't think of the name right now. Dang it, it's going to come to me in a minute. But there was a lot of fear mongering, and a lot of the same stuff I think is happening right now with the A2L refrigerants. So just keep in mind, there's some basic safety practices that we all need to follow. We need to read up on them. We need to be prepared. But if we follow those safety practices and you're paying attention and you're aware of things that can happen, you're gonna be okay. Okay, just make sure that you're being safe. All right. And while there is some tools that need to be A2L compliant, okay, a lot of tools don't need to be A2L compliant. I'm sorry, but if someone out there is selling a duct hammer that's A2L compliant, they're trying to rip you off. And I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying it's just stuff like that. Everybody's trying to jump on the bandwagon to say that their tools are A2L compliant when it may not be necessary for certain items, right? You don't need a 6-in-1 screwdriver that's A2L compliant, right? So just things to think about. Let's see what else. Reading through the chat right now. Board on tube. There you go. Yeah, that is it. Exactly. Yeah. So on Brian Sanders says he likes to leave his valves open also on his compound gauges. Yeah. And the important thing is that with compound gauges or digital gauges, you shouldn't be leaving refrigerant in your hoses. You just vent the refrigerant or put as much back into the system as you can, then vent the rest to atmosphere and leave your gauges empty. Don't leave them with pressure in them because it's just putting unnecessary pressure on the board-on tube in the compound gauge or on the pressure transducer in the manifold assembly. When you're using digital gauges, it's really important that you are checking for the calibration and you are zeroing them to your atmosphere in the environment you're working on, right? So whether it be a compound gauge or a digital gauge, when I go to work on it, you open the system or you open the manifold or the gauge to atmosphere, and on the compound one, it should be at 0 when you're at atmosphere, right? And on a digital gauge, it should be zeroed out. If you're using like a field piece S-man, over time they can start to drift. And so if you go and put them on a system when there's already pressure in them, well, it might be off by 2 or 3 psi. That may or may not make a difference in your diagnoses, right? So keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Jonathan says, what are my thoughts on accumulator that looks like copper but is brass and brazed 5% and 15%? Do you need to go 45 with flux? If it is a system, an accumulator that is brass, then I would highly suggest that you are using 56% or 45% silver solder. Do not use any of the, I should step back. I shouldn't say do not. I need to do better at not telling people what to do. I prefer using high silver bearing content solder and actually brazing. So I like 56% silver solder with a silver solder paste flux. And that's what I would use to bond brass to copper, 100%. Okay. There is other solders out there that claim that they work, you know, and you don't need to get them as hot. Some people like using them, but in refrigeration, your best bet is to stick to 15% silphos and 56% silver solder. Those won't do you wrong in refrigeration work. My buddy Curious HVAC guy is in here. That's my good buddy Bill Russell, who's also on the HVAC Overtime show with me on Friday nights. Let's see. Jason Johnson says, when removing your gauges, valve off the high side with a ball valve, open up your high and low side, suck the liquid back into the system until the pressure equalizes on the low side and the high side. And then, yes, then you vent to atmosphere after that. Yes. Let's see. Nasty says, working on the oh, okay. No, he's just talking to someone else. Right on, Jonathan. Yeah, you're welcome, my good friend. Okay. So going through my list of things. So yeah, the gentleman that asked me if I make a lot of mistakes. Yes, I do. It happens on a regular basis. That same gentleman also asked me if I would consider making vlog style videos where it just shows my daily routine, I'm assuming without editing. I don't know if I would consider doing that. I do have to be careful about what I put up on my channel because for the most part, I put up my own content, but you do have to follow some basic principles behind your channel. And if I put up vlog style videos, they really, first off, I don't know how many people would actually want to just hear me talk about random crap or the hour and a half of quiet while I'm driving or whatever. Like, I don't know if that would be like a bit much for me, but I don't know. It's just a little odd for me to be doing vlog style content. I mean, I kind of already do because I show you guys my work, but I'm doing cutting. Like I just show a little bit, cut to the next clip, to the next clip. It's not really unedited vlog style stuff. Let me see. Background music rights. Oh, okay, cool. Right on. All right. Lots of tool manufacturers are advertising. I already talked about that one too. So yeah, cool. See, I'm already working through my list. Logan asks how is it possible to pressure test a system that you have pumped down? First off, let's explain what pumping a system down is. So you have a basic refrigeration system. The compressor is going to pump the gas. That gas is going to go through the condenser. When it comes out of the condenser, it should have changed state on the exit of the condenser. Then the refrigerant line out of the condenser, the liquid drain is going to go into the liquid line receiver. That liquid line receiver is then going to go down to your expansion valve, run through your evaporator, come out of the evaporator, go back up to the compressor, and the circuit is complete of the basic refrigeration system. So if you are doing a field repair on a refrigeration system, let's just say it has a leak in the evaporator, for the most part, you should be able to go up onto the roof or wherever the condensed unit's at and close the king valve on the receiver while the system's still running and calling. And the system will do something called a pump down, where it's going to continue to pump the refrigerant, but it's been designed to have that storage vessel to have all the refrigerant pumped into it. So the system's going to keep running. The liquid's going to back up in the condenser. Then the system will shut off on low pressure. You vent the low side to atmosphere. And now the refrigerant is stuck from the discharge of the compressor to the king valve of the receiver. It's stuck in there. It's stuck in the compressor, the condenser, and the receiver are part of the compressor. And then you can do a field repair down at the evaporator. You can braze a leak. You can pull an evacuation, change a dryer. But the question is, how do you pressure test a system that's pumped down? Very carefully, because pressure testing a system is very risky that is pumped down. one thing you really, really want to make sure is that in no way does your test pressure, the nitrogen that you're putting into the system, exceed the pressure of the high side of the system. So looking at your gauges, very important point right here. Used to have a big problem with a technician of mine in the past. Doesn't work for me anymore. We're talking like 10 years ago, but this technician loved to pump systems down without putting his high side gauge on there. That can be very dangerous. Whenever you are pumping refrigerant into a vessel, you need to know the pressure and the temperature of that vessel internally. So that way it doesn't overheat and pop a pressure relief or something explode. So when you're pumping a system down, you should always have your high side on. So that way you can monitor the high side pressures, because that's a good way to find out if it's overcharged. Because even though it has a storage vessel, what happens if the guy before you put 10 pounds extra refrigerant in it, and then you're trying to pump it down and it's just going and going and going until something's got to give, right? And something breaks. So it's always important to make sure you have your high side pressure on there. So if you have your high side pressure on, and then it's time to do a pressure test to see if you have any more leaks, and you put nitrogen in the system, make sure that you don't go over the high side pressure, because those valves in the system, the high side at the compressor and the keying valve of the receiver, those are not 100% leak free. Remember, they're not going to atmosphere, they're going internal to the system. So if there's a minute leak in one of them, it might not make a refrigeration problem on the operation. But if you happen to have a leak in one of those and you put 400 psi of nitrogen in the system, but there's only 150 psi of standing pressure of refrigerant, in theory, that nitrogen can leak into the refrigerant and then contaminate that refrigerant and add non-condensables, because nitrogen is not a condensable gas for our types of systems. And so when it mixes with the refrigerant, that can be a big problem and cause your system not to work. So pressure testing with nitrogen on pump down systems, I will do it occasionally, but you need to be very, very careful and be hyper aware of what you're doing in the system, so that way you don't mix that with the refrigerant and contaminate all your refrigerant. Let's see. Wouldn't it go off on high pressure super tech? Again, I mean, it should in theory if the high pressure control works. But I mean, I've seen stranger things. I've seen systems that have high pressure controls on the liquid line. Okay. Okay. So then when it goes to go off on high pressure, it's not seeing the true high pressure of the system. It's seeing the liquid pressure, which could be a little bit lower. So yeah, in theory, a high pressure control should go off, but what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't have a high pressure control? I've seen that too. So, we as technicians need to be able to evaluate the situation we're in. Every job that we do can't just be cookie cutter every single time. Even though I work at chain restaurants where they may all look the same, there's little different things about them, or maybe the system's different, or who knows. And it's my responsibility and my job to be aware of my surroundings and my situation and understand what's going on. So that way when I put my gauges on it and it's like, it's not pumping down and it's taking forever, and my high side pressure is at 450 psi and it's 404A, and all of a sudden my compressor just shuts off, but my condenser fan motor stays on. Well, my compressor just went off on internal overload because there wasn't enough room to pump all that refrigerant into the receiver, because it wasn't designed right, or it was overcharged or whatever. And it's my responsibility and my job, even though I'm there doing something else, to be aware of what's going on in my system. Supertech says anything is possible in refrigeration. That is so the truth. I've got some crazy videos out there, and it's 100% the truth. Let's see, reading through the chat. Do you only do chains or a lot of solo customers? Well, it's funny because for the longest time I only did work for one chain restaurant, and then I had a few solo customers, and I did a lot of work for one chain restaurant, and then it started to get really uncomfortable to the point that it's like I need to get a few more chains, so that way I didn't have all my eggs in one basket. And then we got a bunch more chains, and then now we're starting to lose some of them, and I need to get some more mom and pop customers. Or what I'd really like is, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is I would like to do 50% restaurants and 50% just commercial air conditioning. That would be awesome. So that way I didn't have all the 911 emergency calls on Saturdays and Sundays. And I know you'll still get them some with air conditioning, but yeah, I want to get into a little bit more air conditioning work. So that way it's just a good mix of restaurant stuff and air conditioning stuff. That would be ideal. Let's see. Have I ever worked on a Bev Air lowboy that the evap cannot be worked on unless you remove the entire top of the unit? Drawers have a frame in the middle that cannot be removed. Mark, I have never worked on that particular box, but I have seen plenty of pictures of that particular box, and I know exactly which one you're talking about. Someone just posted something about it on social media the last few weeks, a couple different Bev Air units. And yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, I used to work on this one True unit that had a cassette for the condenser and the evaporator. Like you could slide the whole thing out, and it was their first lowboy drawer unit. They just revamped them. They went to the IntelliTrol display, and it was so awesome. Those things were just junk. They were just junk. Such a pain in the butt. Even though it had a cassette, you still had to get behind the box to loosen screws. It was a pain in the butt. Let's see. DYL 444, is the new field piece core removal tool worth it for the price? That's a great question. What is it? 120, 130? I think I've seen numbers from like 120 or 130 to 140 or something for the big core removal tool. Yeah, it's quite expensive, but also inflation's happening. Is it worth the money? Well, I've only had mine for about 2 or 3 weeks now. So far, I've got nothing but good things to say about it. No real issues with it. I don't have one sitting right here because it's in my van. But one thing I really like is on the end of the plunger, you're able to hold the plunger and spin it with one hand. And it's really awesome. That is a really cool feature that it has. And I really do appreciate that. Obviously, it has a sight glass too. So time will tell. I mean, it's the same thing with any tool out there. Don't just buy a tool. The last thing I want for any of you guys to do is to buy a tool simply because I said this is the tool you need to have. Don't do that. Okay? If I use a tool and it looks cool, do your research. Read about it. Check it out. Go look at them at the supply houses. Do not just buy something because you see me using it, okay? Sometimes I get bored and I just like to buy tools because it just gives me something to do. My entire life is work, so the tools are just something fun. And I buy things and it's like, oh, that's cool, or I buy it and it's like, that wasn't so great. I don't use it. So far though, with the new what is it, the Fieldpiece VC2G, that's the vacuum core removal tool that has an extra ball valve for the vacuum port, and then it has a sight glass for the Schrader. I like it. But another thing to understand too is that I don't care whose core removal tool you're going to buy. You're still going to have damaged cores. Okay. You're still going to have cores that aren't going to come out. Right. Every core removal tool is subject to the fact that the Schrader cores can get damaged in the system. Okay. And sometimes they get really damaged, especially if they blow apart inside. They can get stuck. They can just get really messed up. And every tool is going to have a hard time with them, right? When they're damaged, or when the flared end where the Schrader goes in is smashed down that the Schrader can't even come out anymore. I've seen that a lot too, where people are over tightening copper caps with wrenches and stuff on, king valves and suction service valves, and it just damages little Schrader ports in there. That's another thing. So I like the new VC2G from Fieldpiece so far. Like I said, it's, had it for a little bit, and so far it's great, but give it some more time, but do your own research. Do not. And I'm going to say that about every other social media person out there, right? I like to consider myself to be a little bit different than most because I don't just follow what everybody wants to. I don't just push the things that people want to pay me to push, because I'm not really, don't get me wrong. Of course, I'm conflicted because, I'd love to have a little bit more money to be able to live a more comfortable life. But at the same time, I got to be true to myself. And I don't want you guys to think that I'm out there just pushing crap because someone's paying me. That's not the case, right? But I do like to buy tools, and I like new stuff, and I like to show you guys my experience with those tools. And then, like I said, if you guys see something that I'm using and you like it, don't just buy it because you saw me use it. Do your research too. Ask around, but use mine as one of the many opinions you're going to get about a tool, before you should buy it. So let me cross that one off my list, and we'll get to a couple more things here. I had a video a couple months back where I had 2 Heatcraft Intelligent boards that had failed. And I said it was because the manager got up in there. He was poking his nose around. He was unwiring things and trying to fix. I don't know what he was thinking, but 2 boards had failed. There's like a little spot on the bottom that looks like a burn mark. And then there's what looks to be maybe like a little capacitor over here that has a lot of corrosion on it. So someone mentioned in one of my videos recently, they said that like that was totally repairable, and basically saying that I wasted the customer's money by replacing the boards instead of just trying to repair a solder joint. The thing is you have to understand, for a hobbyist, I'm assuming, because most companies out there know that board repair is not something that's scalable to a bunch of technicians. There certainly is a time and the place when you can to try to fix something. You can be a hero if you can fix something. But you know, it's one thing for me as the person that's running things to get in there and try to fix a circuit board, solder on a joint, you know, protect it, fix it, whatever I got to do. But it's another thing for me to put that responsibility in technicians' hands and expect them to do everything the same way that I would want things done too. And there's certain things that you do that with technicians, right? Because that's, as an employer, you have to let your guys go and do their own thing. But at the same time, you limit their exposure to certain things that could compromise, you know, the operation of your business or hurt your reputation. Fixing a circuit board, there's too much liability in it for me, because I don't know what's going on in this board. I don't know what these individual components do. I know there's a few capacitors, a few relays, but there's other crap on here. I have no idea what it is. So just because I see one little solder spot that's burnt, should I try to fix that? My personal preference is no, because I can't guarantee it's going to work, right? But I can go and buy a new circuit board from the manufacturer who's going to stand behind their product, install it, give the customer my 30-day warranty, right? Or 90-day warranty, and then have the manufacturer's warranty on their part to back me up that that's all, you know, what's going on. But obviously it's really important too, when you have a bad board, to find out why the board had failed. But as far as repairing boards, it's not something that's a smart business decision for me to try, because I'm not an electrical engineer. Okay. I don't know what's going on inside that board. So I have no business trying to fix it. So let me see what else is going on here. It would be a risk to the customer. Yep. Jordan says he's soldered loose pins on defrost boards, and that's fine. And I'm not judging anybody for doing it. Every business has to make their own decisions. I just choose not to take that risk. So any thoughts on linear compressors? No, I mean, I've heard that the linear compressors out there right now, being used in most domestic appliances. There's certain manufacturers that are using them. There's massive recalls. I think that they're having some issues with them, but I'm sure there's some good linear compressors out there. But you know, I don't really have any thoughts. I've never worked with them. Those intelligent need to be secured via screws to work properly. Yeah, you got to have screws going through this. Yeah, bonding the board or whatever. That's like its grounding function. Yeah, you definitely have to have those in there. Let's see. I've made comments regarding repairing PCBs. Yeah, and Deltic engine, again, nothing wrong if you can do it, more power to you, but I'm not capable, neither are my technicians, of repairing circuit boards. It's just not in our business thing. So Jason says he has an oscilloscope. It's been fun learning. He can play around on the board and find the issues. That's really cool, Jason. Yeah, I would love to have the patience and the time to be able to sit down with something. You know, I have all kinds of hobby projects and ideas that I want to do that I just haven't had time to deal with. So, and I overcommit to way too many things, projects with other people. I committed to another project with someone else that I should send an email. I really need to send an email for this project because I just can't. I overcommit myself to things, and I'm like, man, I got too much stuff going on right now to throw another thing in my fire. Have I worked on Aeon units? The good guy, not very much. I used to have one customer that had a location that had like 6 Aeon units, and I did some minor repairs, some leak repairs, but nothing on the high end units. They were just electromechanical units that were super easy to work on. The most technology that those units had in them was heat recovery ventilators, enthalpy wheels in them. But yeah, no, I can't even say I've had enough experience to be an Aeon technician. Jonathan says a lot of the boards are coated in resin gel to prevent corrosion. You have to really know and understand what you're doing to fix them. Good point. Yeah, 100%. Have I had any more Manitowoc problems recently? Simon, Yeah, I mean, we are working on ice machines probably at least once a week. I had a technician working on a couple Manitowocks today, so I was talking to him about those problems, but nothing that I filmed. So, reading through the chat right now. Okay. An oscilloscope is a game changer once you spend the time to learn how to use them properly. He has 100 to 1, 1000 to 1 probes that work on higher MSINs voltage. I don't know what that means, but let's see. Cool. All right. A couple more things. So I already covered that question. Let's cross that off my list of things to talk about. Why in the heck, and this is probably one of the most common questions I get in my videos. Why in the heck do I use copper drain lines when I install and repair air conditioners? And why do I use copper drain lines when I install and repair ice machines? Why don't I just use PVC drain lines? I just don't like PVC. Okay. With our UV exposure that we have and the high heat temperatures on the roof, PVC gets brittle and hard years later. When technicians are dragging hoses across the roof and you're pulling it up against a PVC drain line, I'm not joking with you. I've had it happen where the PVC drain line breaks below the roof deck. And then we got to get plumbers involved, or we got to go climbing through the attic with the drop ceiling to fix it's. I prefer to eliminate problems from the start. So if I have a say in the matter, I'm not going to use PVC for my drain lines on the roof. I'm going to use copper because it lasts. Problem with copper is tweakers want to steal it. So you got to make those judgment calls. Now, why do I use copper on my ice machines versus PVC? For a very similar reason. In a restaurant, oftentimes the ice bin will be, 6 inches from the ground. Okay. And the customers, when they're cleaning, the kitchen staff will take squeegees and shove them underneath there and kind of hook them without even knowing what they're doing to try to get all the water out from underneath the bin. And they break the drain lines off. And it is a nightmare to try to fix those PVC drain lines behind an ice machine that doesn't come out, that, hasn't been moved for years. And it's just a pain in the butt. So from personal experience of having to repair multiple ice machines where the restaurants have broken the drain lines behind the machines, I have decided to start using copper drain lines for them. And I find massive success in using the copper versus the PVC. The repairs have gone down significantly. The customer's not breaking and jamming crap into the drain lines anymore, for the most part. Although I have had some customers jam the copper drain lines too, though. So, Digital IP says specifically you meant inside the drain line. Oh, inside drain lines and not outside. Yeah, and that's exactly why, Digital IP, because I just don't like the drain lines getting broken and they're a pain in the butt. Copper's just so much easier. Yeah, it costs a couple bucks more, but it just is part of the install and you move on and you typically don't ever have problems with them again. So let's see. Tech Junkie says he bets having copper drain lines keeps them cleaner because copper is a disinfectant metal. Use copper to treat fish diseases, and copper is biologic. Yeah. So copper is known to have the stuff that's in it, the minerals or whatever, can help to reduce like slime and stuff like that too. I don't know all the science behind all that, but my reasons are not really because of that. It's more or less just because I'm sick of the customer breaking the drain lines off on the ice machines. So Jason says he was allowed to use PVC. It was a pinkish color and was labeled UV resistant and was allowed by code. Very true. Yeah. Fixing those bins. Yeah, it's a nightmare. How am I liking the new Field Piece Schrader core tool? Any flaws? Jonathan Turner, not yet. Had it for a couple weeks, was just talking about it a few minutes ago. So far, so good. Keep in mind, just like I said a few minutes ago, the last thing I want is for you to just buy a tool just because you see me using it. You see me using it, you can listen to my feedback, but also do your own research, ask your own friends. Don't just buy something because I said it's cool. Okay. Try, you need to do your research too. I don't want that pressure on me thinking that you guys are just going out and buying stuff because I said it's the best and then it doesn't work or something. I don't want that stuff to happen. So don't get me wrong. I make money from these videos. I make money from my affiliate sales and my commissions and the thing, the projects that I work on with manufacturers and stuff. Like I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. But at the same time, I have a conscience too. And I still have to be able to think like, I don't want people to think I'm there just to push products. Like that's not who I've ever, I never planned on any of this, but I don't want to be a person that just pushes products for money. That's not my thing. So I hope nobody gets that from me, because there's a lot of people out there, I'm not going to name names, that do that all day long, that will push anything to make a buck. That is not me. Unless it's like $1 million, then I'll push anything down your throat. So, all right. Have I ever worked on Fullet ice machines? Yeah, man. I've done a significant amount of work on Fullet Symphony ice machines, Horizon ice machines. Used to have a hospital customer that I serviced for probably almost 10 years, where we were exclusively cleaning their 100+ ice machines on a quarterly basis. Man, those things would keep us super busy. They would hand us a stack of work orders that was like that fat for the quarter and be like, here's all your ice machine and refrigeration PMs. And then we'd have to bust our butt to get them done. That was fun. That was a fun thing. And I did a lot of work with the Fullets back then. I don't currently have any Fullets. My last one was retired a couple of years ago, and don't do that customer anymore anyway. So how busy am I getting? 90 degrees in Vegas today. It's getting there. It's like in the 80s, but we're not like super slammed right now. Our saving grace right now is we had a customer that just started a PM program again. It's like quarterly PMs. And so we have a list of them, and they want us on site for a crazy amount of time for these PMs. So that's keeping us kind of going. We're getting started on those right now. We have like 6 of those to do. So that'll be kind of nice. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Okay. What is my vice? Shoot. I don't know. I really don't have any hobbies besides making these videos. I mean, I like if you want to ask like what my vice is, as like what relaxes me, what calms me down, listening to music or watching TV. Like watching a movie relaxes me. Watching or listening to music relaxes me. Those are the two things. So yeah. All right. Do I do new installs? No, not really. So reading through the chat right now. Oh, exactly. All right. Coke nose is my vice. Yeah, exactly. Drugs are bad, man. Don't do drugs. Okay. No, I've actually, yeah, no, I'm not even going to get into that, but I've gotten into it before. So, already covered that question real quick. Door heater failure. Oh, I don't understand that question. Yeah, I don't know that one. What about in a recent video, I had a suction line filter dryer that was starting to rust out in the corners, and someone was worried that it was going to rust out and leak refrigerant. I mean, everything that's mounted outside that has steel in it is eventually going to rust when like the epoxy coatings and stuff go away. It's all about the environment that you're in. And, I'm not going to tell a customer that they need to change a suction line filter dryer or a compressor or an accumulator or a receiver just because I see a little rust. You're going to judge each situation differently, and you're going to pay attention to the severity of the rust. Are you working with really high pressure refrigerants like CO2? Well, I don't think it would be acceptable for there to be rust on anything with the pressures that you run in CO2. So paying attention to what you're doing and understanding your surroundings is going to let you know. So if I see a little bit of rust on a suction line filter dryer, I mean, for the most part, it's not going to concern me until it starts to get really bad. And then I'm going to start thinking there's going to be a problem. But, I'm not going to try to sell my customers something that they absolutely don't need. So am I excited to get very busy? Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to start picking up work. Yeah. But on the same time, everything's different now. I don't know. This is the weirdest winter that we've had. And I've talked to other companies too. It's not just mine. Like it's been really slow, abnormally slow this season. And a lot of it probably has to do with an election year, which is just destroying our entire year because everybody is idiots. Like both sides, everybody's idiots because nobody can coexist. And it's ridiculous. People are just so stupid they can't coexist with other people. I'm sorry. Don't get me off on that one. But also, inflation's really high, so people aren't spending as much money. So these restaurants are really trying to cut back in different places, but we're doing fine. And yes, I am excited to start picking up some work for sure. So reading through here. Okay, cool. Yeah, lots of great stuff. Exactly. All right. Wasn't there okay, so a couple questions in my last video too. with the multiple walk-ins when I was working on the walk-in freezer. The suction dryer, it was kind of starting to rust on the ends, but I said I wanted to be able to check a pressure drop across the suction dryer. Multiple people were asking me how come I didn't do a temperature drop. Because, and I didn't always know this, I've since done some research and learned that it's going to be really difficult to see a temperature drop across a suction line filter dryer because you're dealing with vapor refrigerant at that point. When you have a liquid refrigerant that's going through a plugged up liquid line filter dryer, that liquid is more than likely going to restrict to a point that it's going to start to change state, right? And it's going to meter out of the dryer and actually change, you know, the state of the refrigerant, which is going to drop the temperature of the refrigerant. So you could get that noticeable temperature difference, right? When you're changing from a liquid to a vapor. But when you're running through just vapor refrigerant through a suction line filter dryer, it's going to be pretty difficult to see an actual temperature drop. Now, I used to think that you could see a temp drop, but I've since learned that it's not really there. You really need to be checking pressure drops across the suction filter. You know, and of course on a liquid line filter dryer too, a pressure drop is what you want to know, but liquid line, you can check temperature and that'll give you a good indication on whether or not there's a big pressure drop. But on a suction line filter dryer, it's not as easy to check a temp drop across it. So what else do we got going on in the chat? Reading through here. For the same reason, lukewarm water feels really cold, just because it conducts heat way better. Yep. Reading through the chat right now. Okay, so Novel Crown says you just started commercial refrigeration a few months ago and started watching the videos for a better understanding. Oh, well, that's really nice. I'm glad that they help you out there, buddy. And then any tips for anyone other than trying to grasp the basics like electricity, etc.? So as far as the fundamentals go, what I'm going to suggest, it doesn't matter if you're in refrigeration or air conditioning, I'm going to highly suggest that you check out a few different content creators. Craig Migliaccio is a great one because he does a great job. AC Service Tech is his platform. If any of the mods can throw these links in the chat, that'd be great. So Craig Migliacci over at AC Service Tech, he does a great job of explaining the basics and the fundamentals. Another great, probably one of the best educators I know is Mr. Ty Brannaman, Love to HVAC on social media. Ty has some of the most amazing content. He's such a great way of educating people and talking to people in a way that you can understand. So Ty's another great one. HVAC School from Brian Orr and the people that help out that channel and platform is another great place for the basics for sure. So check out those. There's more too, but I'm not any of the moderators, if there's any other good ones, add them in there too. So let's see what else. Reading through the chat right now. Okay. Can I describe the function of a DTC valve on a compressor? So let me grab one. All right. So a DTC valve, that's this guy right here. Anybody know what that is? What is a DTC valve? It's a really simple component. See if anybody in the chat knows what this is. Like, it cools the compressor, but how does it do it? How does this cool the refrigerant? How does it work, right? Let's see if anybody in the chat has anything going on here. Liquid injection, yep. But what is this? This is an expansion valve. It's just not a thermostatic expansion valve. Is it? Is it thermostatic? Yeah. No, it's not thermostat. You know, I don't know. I guess it might be. Yeah. But this is a temperature responsive expansion valve is what this is. That's all this is. It's a metering device. This right here gets hot. Once it gets to a certain point, the pressure in this line opens a diaphragm or pushes down on a diaphragm and meters refrigerant into the compressor. It goes into a special section of the compressor that helps to cool off and try to lower the compression ratio. So that way the compressor is not having such a hard time. But all that is an expansion valve. Okay. So this is a cutaway of a normal expansion valve. This is an actual thermostatic expansion valve. Yeah, it's just that DTC valve is just a metering device. That's all it is. It just goes into a special component on the scroll compressor, not one of those. I don't have a cutaway with a DTC valve in it. Let's see what else we got going on here. Liquid injection meters, that's 100% right. It's a liquid injection valve, that's 100% right. Yeah, it is a DTC valve. So Let's see. Can a QRC board be firmware updated with software from a computer? I mean, I'm sure. I don't know how, but yeah, I'm sure there's a way to update this. I think. Again, I don't know. So actually, no, I do know they're updatable. Yeah, 100%. I don't even know what that question is about, so I'm not going to cover that one. Now, to answer the question though, is actually Freon Leon talking about the DTC valve. Now, what the DTC valve does inside the scroll compressor, I cannot explain that. I've watched videos on it, but I haven't retained enough of the information. But it gets into the top of the scroll compressor to help cool it off. Just Google search DTC valve or liquid injection on scroll compressor, and it'll you'll probably find a video that'll explain it. So, Freon Leon says high glide refrigerant is the only time you see them. I'm assuming that you're talking about the liquid injections. So, liquid injection is typically going to be seen on the low temperature compressors and the extended temperature compressors, the ones that can operate as a freezer and a cooler compressor, or the ones that are operate solely as freezer compressors. Those typically will have the liquid injection. And the liquid injection really became a thing. I mean, obviously they were doing it supermarket side, but with R22 and the low temp applications, you would have a lot of overheat issues with the compressors. And so that was one of the reasons they started using those. Cool. So this week, nothing crazy. Like I've got a few jobs planned. Coming up, I've got a Hoshizaki. I've got to change evaporator plates on a Hoshizaki ice machine soon. And then we've got a couple exhaust fan installs. I'm thinking through in my head right now, a couple exhaust fan installs, a couple walk-in installs, walk-in door installs. We've got some AC change outs coming up. We got a lot of stuff. It's just waiting for everything to get here and trying to find the time. The Hoshizaki evaporator change, I'd actually need to schedule that one because I have the evap plates. So let's see what else we got going on in this chat. How long did I wait for those plates? Actually, this time, Freon Leon, they came in 2 weeks, a week. I was like, whoa, they came quick. But I ordered some last year and they took like 9 months or something. It was insane. So, what building management software do I run into? BMS. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I don't really deal with any. We have a couple internet controlled thermostats setups, internet stat setups or whatever, but we don't really deal with any building management automation systems or anything like big stuff. Nothing like that. No, Freon, dude, it took a couple weeks. They had them in stock. So they were 1600s though. But one thing that is funny though is I'm 99% sure the first time I did a Hoshi evap replacement, they gave me evap plates. It was a 1600-pound machine. They gave me evap plates for a 1340, so a 1400-pound ish machine. So they were reducing the size and the consumption of the ice, or the output of the ice, which really started to make me wonder. I mean, can't they get in trouble? Like I guess as a technician, I made sure that the customer knew. Hoshizaki doesn't have the other, 1600-pound plates. So they were shipping these out that, so the customer signed off on it. So I have no liability, but don't you think it was kind of funny that they don't have those or didn't have those plates back then? Now, when I got my plates for this machine, this is also a 1600-pound machine. The part number says 1340 or 1600. So I don't know if that means that it's the same plate for both or if they're just shipping out the 1340 plates now. I don't know. I was confused on that, but Brian Sanders doing a 5-door beer cooler evap job tomorrow. Oh, okay. Right on. That's cool. Well, yeah, it is time to wrap it up because it is dinner time. My family's out in the other room. It's been cool. One thing I'm going to say is as I close this out, again, I hope that you guys get the right impression from this channel. I don't want people to think that I'm only doing this to push crap down people's throats. I'm not. Of course I make a couple bucks from it. I appreciate all you guys for continuing to watch. Okay. Thank you guys very much for all the feedback and support that you guys give me. I am very open to criticism. If y'all have criticism, whether it be constructive or whether you just don't like me, I'm totally cool shoot me an email. Let's talk about it. Let me learn. Okay. Maybe you have some criticism that I can grow from. I'm totally down for it. Okay. So I hope that I don't come across as a jerk. I hope I don't come across as person, you know, whatever. I know I got mental issues and crap, but it is what it is. I really do appreciate you. Okay. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. I'll bring the pups in here in just a minute. So again, we will catch you on the next one.